So again, welcome to our information session. Just by way of a quick notice, the Small Business Association organizes these events on a monthly basis because we have the view that beyond the lobbying and advocacy that we do for an enabling environment for MSMEs to function, that training and education are equally important. And so with a myriad of national issues affecting the sector, every month we seek to bring our members and non-members alike together in such forum as these to discuss some of those issues. We've taken your information, all of you signed in at the beginning of this event, and this is to facilitate that for all future sessions, we'll be able to send you our flyers and to send you the communique on those events that you can also come out and participate and listen to either a technocrat, government official, entrepreneur, regional and or international professional who will usually come and share on a specific issue. Now this topic, VAT on online transactions, has been given a lot of commentary, some correct and some incorrect. And obviously because of the implications for the small business sector, we felt it was critical, absolutely critical, that we bring someone to come and share on this new regime. What are the implications for the sector? How will it function? How will it work? Etc. And this is why we're here this morning. How we are going to proceed today, our presenter will come and will share for about 20 minutes, and then we'll have the next 50 minutes or so in question and answer. The latter we consider to be of utmost importance, because beyond him sharing, we want that your burning questions and issues can be addressed and will be addressed. So this is why we've given a longer period to the Q&A segment. Let me also share that when we get to that segment, I have two officers in the room. They'll bring a mic to you. I'm going to ask you please to cooperate with us and try not to speak until you've received the mic, because we need to be able to capture that question via our PA system. Okay? So when we get to the Q&A, we'll ask you to raise your hand and we'll bring the mic to you, and you'll be able to proceed with your question. Our presenter this morning, Professor Avinash Prasad, is no stranger to the Small Business Association. Actually, when we started our Leo Leacock Memorial Lecture Series, he was one of the first to come and share in that series, and he's been a friend of the association from that time until now. We can call on him at any time to address any burning issue, and we think that given the fact that he's a special envoy to the Prime Minister on finance and investment, and he is in the inner room when the discussions are being had, that he should have some knowledge of this particular new tax and be able to share with us this morning. So without any further ado, it is my pleasure, ladies and gentlemen, to invite Professor Avinash Prasad to come and share with us at this time. Let's give him a warm SBA welcome as he comes.
Thank you very much, Senator. Let me begin by saluting the SBA, its members, its management, ably led by Senator Holder, of course, and her team. What a terrific turnout, and I gather you do this every month to help expand the wider understanding of the sector on some key issues. It's fantastic. I am an emeritus professor of Gresham College in the UK, and that's a very unusual place, Gresham College. It was set up in 1589. Professors like Sir Christopher Wren, Robert Hooke, and our principal job is to give public lectures, to widen the public understanding on some key issues. And so I've given a number of public lectures in the UK with a similar size audience, but I know that when they come to hear me in London, it's only because it's cold and wet outside. So I'm very impressed that you've got people to come when it's dry and warm outside. It's really quite terrific. And indeed, a part of me, though, knows, a little part of me knows that you're actually, some of you are here to hate me a little. I mean, who loves the tax man? Indeed, I'm only here. I'm only here because I'm not very quick on my feet. Now, when I say that, people are thinking not very fast, but actually, I mean I'm not very quick on my feet, because what happened was I'll be around with lots of the advisors and cabinet ministers, we'll be chatting to each other, and the woman from GIS will pipe up, clear her throat, and so I'll turn around and listen to her, and she'll say, so who is going to talk about online taxes? And I wonder, why is she looking at me? And I look around and they've all disappeared. I'm here today because I'm the only one who wants to speak to you about online taxes, because it is a bit complicated. There's a fair bit of confusion, but I'm happy to try. And I want to really focus on your questions, because I think that will allow us to drill down on the things that matter to you most, and as opposed to what I think matters to you most. And on this particular tax, there's a tremendous amount of, I wouldn't say misinformation, but confusion. A lot of people are saying things which is not quite right. Have we got any feedback here? Or, so let me really try and answer your questions, but let me also begin by setting the scene, maybe 7 things I think you ought to know, and then ask you for your questions. So I'm really just rabbiting on to give you time to come up with your questions. So, you know, and there's going to be a prize for the first question, so get ready. Now, the first thing I should say, and I've had the misfortune of being involved in other taxes, is that, and you hear people saying, you know, you mustn't do this tax, you must cut this tax, and it's important to remember that every tax is a disincentive to do something. So imagine the first day there was the first ever income tax, somebody did say that nobody would work anymore. Now you've taxed income, and the government is taking some income from your hard work, and nobody's going to work anymore. And you could imagine the first time they did corporation tax, somebody would have said, companies are not going to set up anymore because the government's now stealing your money, taking your money away from your hard-earned labor. Why should people do that? So every tax is a disincentive. Sometimes we want that disincentive. You know, the biggest success in public policy on reducing smoking and lung cancer was not surgery, it was the taxes. The taxes had a dramatic impact on the consumption of cigarettes when we raised them to a high enough level, which had a dramatic impact later on lung cancer. So sometimes we want to disincentivize things with taxes, but every tax is a disincentive. And I think that we also need to remember that the program, the BERT program, Barbados Economic Recovery and Transformation Plan, it's unique in one way. It is the most shared adjustment program in history. The most shared adjustment program in history. Barbados is making a first. Not the most shared program in Barbados's history, in world history. We have shared the adjustment between creditors and borrowers very evenly. We have shared the adjustment between government employees and taxpayers very evenly. We have shared the adjustment fairly uniquely between our tourists. People who don't live in Barbados are paying, with a higher VAT, a higher daily room rate, a significant amount of our adjustment. So we're sharing between non-residents and residents. And so we know the burden is heavy. But the reason why we've been able to do it is that we've shared it as much as possible. And so when people say you shouldn't do this tax, they really need to come up with the alternative. If we don't do this tax, tell me how we're going to raise $50 million. Because that is what we are losing today on people who should be paying VAT. This is not a new tax, it's a new way of collecting the tax. We are losing $50 million a year, did I say a day? A year from not collecting this tax. So if you've got a better idea of how we raise VAT, and bear in mind that we're doing a lot of adjustments everywhere else. Can we raise the room tax more? I don't think so. Can we raise VAT more? I don't think so. Indeed, if we collect this $50 million, we might be able to lower the VAT rate by at least 1 percentage point. If we collect $50 million, that is almost half of what we spend on UE. It is a significant chunk of what we spend on the hospital. So with these resources, we can spend more, we can tax less. And so if anyone has a better idea, we're open. Hopefully you've heard this is a listening government. We are open. Tell us how we can raise $50 million in a better way. And we will seriously think about it. And people often have a lack of proportion. People say to me, oh, if government stopped using paper, you would save hundreds of millions of dollars. Well, government should stop using paper. This is the first government that now has cabinet done online as opposed to on papers. But we don't spend $100 million a year on paper. We don't spend $100 million a year on paper clips or on pencils. We might save $1 million. We're not going to save 50 million. And we're trying to save that million, but people have to have proportion. So we're sharing this tax, we have to share it in a proportional way and think about the size of the amount. Now, people are anxious that they are going to be paying this tax twice. They pay the tax online, they come into the port, and the port official, the customs official says, you've got to pay VAT, that's a VAT vatable. And that will not happen. Because when you pay your VAT online, you will get a receipt, which you can either show online on your phone or your iPad or your device, or you print it out. And it will show the customs official that you have paid VAT, and they know that that is no longer collectible. The customs official may work out whether you've paid all the VAT, because maybe you've paid the VAT on the goods you bought, but not the VAT on the shipping that came in. And the only VAT you would be eligible for would be the difference between what you owed and what you've paid. You'll need to have your invoice with you, your VAT invoice with you. And you don't need to have it in physical form, it can be in electronic form. So the system is set up to avoid double taxation. You're not going to have one tax versus the other. You're not going to have be taxed twice. And the way that this will happen is that, this comes to another point, people think we are going to contact all the websites in the world. They are, as you can imagine, billions of websites in the world. We're not going to do that. We don't have to do that. If we had to do that, we wouldn't be doing this tax. There may be 1 billion websites in the world, but there are only about 12 payment processors. PayPal, MasterCard, Visa, Amex. We, as the agent of the Barbados Revenue Authority, sits in each of those 12 payment processors and has downloaded electronically all the goods that you need to pay tax on if you consume it in Barbados. So if there's a good that you do not pay VAT on in Barbados, you will not be paying VAT on it online. This is not a new tax on new things. This is a new way of collecting a tax because, quite frankly, we have not been collecting enough of the tax that should have been paid. We know we don't always get checked at customs. We know that people may buy something online and not declare that they purchased this, not bring the money in maybe because it's all online abroad. So we have been under receiving a significant amount of tax on things that were taxable. And so if there's a good that is not taxable, the payment processor does not charge you VAT. The payment processor sends to the website an invoice page, and it will say, here's the good, and here is the VAT. And the payment processor will know whether the good previously had VAT in it. What will happen is vendors will strip out VAT from now because it will be much simpler to have the good and the VAT added separately so you can see. People sometimes worry that we are basically tracing your credit card. And that whatever credit card transaction you do, you are now going to pay 17.5% on. The online tax has nothing to do with how you pay it. You could pay it in cash, in a check, in a credit card, it doesn't matter. We're not chasing your credit card. The payment processor is making a view as to where is the good. Firstly, it does two checks. Is this good VATable in Barbados? And secondly, is it being consumed in Barbados? And quite rightly, you're thinking, we don't always know. And if we don't know, the payment processor does not know, it does not charge the VAT. Because if you do then get that good, let's say you send the good to your friend in Florida. And that friend in Florida is coming in on a flight tomorrow and they're going to bring it in. If that was a VATable good, they are due to bring it in when they're due to pay the VAT when they come into the port. That's how we would collect that VAT. Now we know that's not a great way of collecting VAT because that doesn't collect. That a lot of people get through that without paying their VAT. But here's the other thing. Most other revenues are not going to come from any of that. Most of the revenues are going to come from people paying for things that you never bring into the port, which are VATable. A hotel room, a villa, VAT should be charged, VAT should be paid. Sometimes it's not. When you now buy that hotel room and the payment processor knows where the hotel is. So you're buying a hotel room in Barbados, it is going to assume that good is going to be consumed in Barbados. You get a car rental in Barbados, it's going to assume that's going to be consumed in Barbados. You buy a pen that's sent off to your friend in Florida, it's not going to assume that's consumed in Barbados. Even if you've got a Barbadian residence and you're using a Barbadian credit card. It has to make a view. And sometimes it may get that wrong. Somehow the hotel might be registered in Barbados, I can't see why, but you know, maybe for some reason the stay didn't take place. Well, then you can get that VAT back. But it's going to err on the side of under-assessing. And we think even doing that conservatively, we're losing about $50 million a year. A lot of things are just not recorded that they were purchased, or they were under-recorded that they were purchased. And the amount that they were purchased is under-recorded, and we are losing VAT from that. So that is really the essential things I wanted to talk to you about. Let me end with a broad philosophy about tax. Well, what are we doing about tax? And it's important for you to appreciate that every tax, remember I began, that every tax is a disincentive to do something. And so getting the balance of taxes right is very important for economic policy. We want to disincentivize some things or disincentivize some things least. So that's why we have reduced our labor taxes, our income taxes, our corporation taxes. You now have in Barbados, for OECD compliant countries, the lowest tax rate in the world. For non-zero OECD compliant taxes, the lowest in the world. And we are hoping that, and we did that because we're hoping that incentivizes you. That by taking less taxes from you, you will invest more. And that you will see the returns are better by investing more because the government's taking less from you. We now have some of the lowest income taxes for personal people. And how do we do that? Well, we're shifting taxes to assets, land taxes, and to transactions. We're shifting taxes to land and transactions. VAT and land are going to be a major part. Now, why do we do that? When you tax land, no one wants any tax. But when you tax land, you actually encourage people to use it. And that will support investment. We have 20,000 unused plots in Barbados. If it was up to me as an economist, we would tax the unused plot, considerably more to encourage people to use it. We know that's politically difficult. Some people in straitened circumstances, they're not working, it's their pension. It's difficult. Difficult to do that in a way that deals with everybody's circumstance. But taxing land actually encourages its use. Taxing income discourages people from working. So we want to shift our taxes from labor taxes to land taxes and VAT taxes. And to make sure we don't raise the VAT, we need to make sure we've spread the VAT and spread the land taxes as broadly as possible. Because if we spread it broadly, the burden is less. Many hands make light work. So let me end there. Hopefully I've set out some of the main issues and I've addressed some of the main uncertainties. I'm sure you will have other issues you want to talk about. But let me summarize. This is not a new tax. You will be paying this tax on a good you've purchased, which you should have paid VAT on before. This is a new way of collecting an existing tax. This tax is not chasing your credit card. This tax is taking a view on where is the good consumed. We're going to, many times, not tax something that is being consumed in Barbados because we don't know it's being consumed in Barbados. And we will hope that when you bring it into the port and the airport, that's the point in which that tax will be paid. But we know we can't rely on that for two reasons. We know that's a very poor collection system. And secondly, there are many, many things that people buy abroad online that are never brought into the port are physically in Barbados. Hotel rooms, villa rooms, Airbnb, and this allows us to tax that. And by taxing it, let me end, but also making sure the playing field is level. Because if you're a small business in Barbados, you have to charge your customers VAT. If someone is able to buy the same good online and bring it in and not pay VAT on the same good, you are at an unfair disadvantage. So what this VAT online is doing is leveling the playing field, especially for small business. Thank you very much indeed. So let's wait for the microphones. Do you wish to chair or shall I just point? If you wait 1 second for the microphone, one's coming your way. This gentleman here.
I stand, sir, because my name is Timothy Walker, and I run a small business. And I am here and I'm standing because when I first heard about this, I did not imagine it would be people like me and maybe people like you. It was intended to be people who go online, who go on my website, buy stuff at the website price, bring it in the luggage, and they will be ones who will be paying the VAT. From the time I start paying VAT, my VAT never was lacking but one time for $24. And if I paid it the Monday, the Wednesday the lady called me and says, Mr. Walker, your VAT is short. How much? $24. You call me for $24? Why don't you go and call those who owe you $1 million in VAT? And I'll make it right next time. For $24 she called me. She used $24 in her time to call me for $24. I've never missed VAT. I've always paid my VAT on time. And it is unreasonable for me to do this because I sell stuff, I buy stuff, and I sell stuff to get the VAT to pay for the stuff when the stuff comes in, whatever the stuff is. And I believe many of us work in that same area. You sell your stuff, you buy stuff, and you sell the one in stock. And then when the stuff come in, you pay the VAT and the duty. And I could never imagine, sir, that it would be for me and many of you that this would happen. And then I remembered that
But you'll be buying
The
a
government of
product
Barbados-
that is vatable.
all of my stuff is compatible. Then I remembered that the government of Barbados don't seem to like small business.
Oh, that's not true. That is not true.
Not this government, the government of Barbados. Sir, when I finished the harbor, they had machinery for sale. I went to then the people who lend people money. They said to me, we don't lend Barbadians money, but they lend Marshall Oran. Today he's a billionaire. He's a billionaire today, and they don't lend Barbadians money.
So, yes.
So you don't label anyone on this live stream.
But also, sir, let's help the
Please.
audience.
Let me
Let's help
finish.
the audience.
Let me
Let's help the
finish
audience with
why I
questions
say
on
that.
VAT.
Let me defend myself. No, I am saying now that it appears that small businessmen are being squeezed again in the wrong places. It appears that way because I never believed, sir, that it would be for me and these folks here. It would be for people who go online and buy stuff, individuals, households. But for me, look, sir, I didn't make it then. I went away in 70s, came back in 4. Debt-free selling.
Sir,
and it is unfair to
I
people
get your
like
point.
me.
I hear you. I hear you. I get your point. But let's be fair to other people who've got questions too. Okay? So I hear your point. You're saying, I hear your point.
It's unfair to people like me.
You're saying it's unfair.
I pay my back.
I hear your point. You are saying it's unfair for people like you, a small business, to buy goods online.
Have a seat, sir. Have a seat.
Yes, please. Let's be fair to everyone in the room. To buy goods from overseas, to pay the VAT on the goods overseas, is unfair for you to do that and sell your goods abroad. I hear you. I hear what you say. I hear your concern about small business, and we share the concern for small business. We are devoutly concerned about expanding the sector. I was talking to Senator Holder about how we believe the character of Barbados will be about the success of its small business. It's why, if you listen to the budget, sir, you would have heard we outlined, I'm chairman of the Financial Services Commission, we outlined many of the things we're trying to do to improve access to finance to small business, in helping small business with crowd finance, with peer-to-peer lending, helping small businesses to have an innovation and growth market. We are open to new ideas to support small business. It's very important to us. But, sir, I would simply say that were you to buy a good locally that was vatable and then package it or whatever you do and sell it locally, why should there be an advantage for you to be without tax if you switch from your local supplier for your good and you buy it overseas? It is not a new tax. It is you are buying a good that is vatable, and that you are avoiding the VAT by not buying it locally, but only by buying it overseas. And that, unfortunately, is a discrimination against local suppliers. So I understand, and we have VAT thresholds for businesses who are of a certain size, so they don't pay VAT, and we are listening very carefully. And if we find when we review this that this has been unfair in particular, we will look at it. But let's ask some more questions. Let's get some more questions, and then we can come back.
We're going to get some others, and we can have a conversation with
My
you
stuff is not
directly
available.
after.
All of my stuff come from
Okay, we'll have an intimate conversation with you after, because I think, Professor, that there's some misunderstanding from what I'm hearing and what this gentleman asks. That's the truth. I'm not clear from the question that he understands how the VAT is applied, and I therefore think that this is a need for a one-on-one to explain that, because that is not clear. This is a tax on your online purchases, and I think that needs to be pellucid, and those items that are consumed in Barbados, they may be purchased online, but they are for consumption here. And I think that is a different point that has been made, and we need to have, in my view, a one-on-one. So let us get a few others, because there are many who came with their questions and they really want for them to be cleared up. We have Kobar, There are a couple of hands here and over that side. So let's quickly get them in. I'm going to ask you, please, to ask the question. Don't give a monologue at the beginning. Just go right ahead and ask the question. Can we do that? Thank you.
Good morning, Cornelius Bartlett.
Good morning.
Senator Holder-Doi, can I only ask one question?
One question right now and then we go around quickly.
Okay. Well, the question is going to come in line with what my colleague here was asking. And I want to be very pointed, because sometimes you can go all over the place. Currently, as a distributor dealer in Barbados, I purchase from overseas suppliers. I pay with credit card a lot of the time. Now, when my goods get to Barbados, VAT is applied at the airport or seaport. Good? Currently, you're saying that I'll be paying a VAT on credit card transactions.
No. On the online purchase, the same good that you paid VAT when you brought it into the port, nothing changes whatsoever. You would have paid the same VAT
So only
when
online.
you purchased it.
So it's not
only on e-commerce.
because you
So
mentioned.
if you purchased it directly with a shop and you send them a wire transfer, you are not paying VAT.
or if I pay with the credit card directly to my suppliers.
You are not paying VAT.
Oh, because you talked about payment processors, so that was confusing for me.
It is payment processors for online transactions.
Good.
So let's repeat that, because I think there may be more. If you purchase a good overseas using your credit card directly,
Online.
not through a website, not through e-commerce, you call them up and say, I want to buy this, and here's my credit card number, you are not paying the VAT on this online tax. Now, if it's a VATable good, you are due to pay VAT when you bring it into the port.
I think you just confused me a little more. Maybe I'm slow. Maybe I'm slow. Maybe I'm slow. Yeah.
Let's move along.
Because I don't-
Let's move along. Let's go here. Let's stay here and then we come around.
Okay, so
All right. Can we get the
let
next
me-
question quickly?
Okay. Please, let's listen to some questions. Let's listen to some questions, please.
Good morning, Deborah Grant, and I'm here on the
Please, let's give respect to people who have questions to ask. Please.
I'm here on the two different headings, but based on your presentation, you mentioned paying VAT to villas and Airbnb and those types, and that definitely caught my attention. And I was of the impression that those areas were deregistered. So I'm not can you please explain how, say I'm in Barbados and I'm purchasing a villa that is not registered, how am I being charged VAT?
You're not being charged VAT if you're not registered.
Right, so therefore
So VAT,
those...
let's make this absolutely clear. VAT is only payable online for a good that VAT is currently payable if you buy it not online. So we have changed rules recently on Airbnb and whatever, we've deregistered. So if it's no longer VATable, then you are not paying VAT online. You are not going to pay VAT online on anything which if you purchased it in Barbados, you would not pay VAT on.
Okay, thank you, because it wasn't clear in your presentation. Thanks.
Another hand in this area. Can we go to the next side? Right. All right, let's move to that side.
Thank you. Good morning. Harold Oxley. Now, I'm involved in environmental consultancy, and very often I have to bring in environmental equipment. Some of that I purchased and I currently pay VAT, not a problem. But sometimes I rent it. And what has happened is that many of our companies they've now automated the process so that I can actually go on their website, choose the item, and pay for it. So that gives the illusion that I'm purchasing online. But in fact, I'm simply renting that equipment and then it's returned. How is that going to work out? Because I may be paying $500 in rent for the equipment, which is actually valued at $20,000. When it gets here, I hope someone's not going to tell me, oh, the value is different, and now I should be paying the difference in VAT between the $20,000 that they value it at and the $5,000 because it's a rental. So how is the rental part going to work out?
You would only pay, if it was VAT eligible, if the lease, so just think about, were you to lease this in Barbados? Were you to go to Williams Industries and lease something in Barbados? Were you to pay the VAT? If that was a VATable, you'd be paying the VAT on the lease, not on the purchase, because you've not purchased it. Because you will have an invoice for what you are doing. And you have an invoice for, and when you pay the online VAT, It is only via an invoice generated by the thing that you've paid for. So if you have paid for a lease, you will only be paying VAT on that lease if leases, in this case, are VATable.
Right, I understand that part of it, man. What may also happen is that when at the point of coming in, there may not actually be an invoice because they may bill me after the fact based on how long I keep it. So when it gets here, what will happen in terms of trying to VAT it? Because we've had that situation before where the custom person will say, well,
So you're
this is
only
worth
going
so
to pay
much.
VAT, let's get this clear.
Right.
You're only going to pay VAT when you've purchased it online.
After the fact.
So if you have
Okay.
not purchased it online and they've sent it to you and you are later doing a transaction with them and it's not online, that's not VATable. That's not VATable with this e-commerce tax.
Now, if the customs person had made me pay a VAT when it came in, will they then be able to recover that when they got the invoice?
Yes.
Cheers, okay.
All right. So really for me, hey, morning, Randy Marshall.
Good morning.
So from everything you've said, I got a basic broad understanding. So let's put a scenario in play. I buy goods from Walmart. My question was really, one, am I going to pay the VAT on their sales tax, which is an abroad tax? And then more importantly, this is supposed to start from May 1st. Is customs ready? Because I know a lot of these times, we put these taxes through, I bring goods now in May, and then customs is telling me I can't refund. Is customs and enforcement ready to net said invoices?
Okay, so two good, really good questions. You would not be charged a sales tax when you buy that good in Walmart.
Yeah.
So Walmart, the payment processors already know where the states are that
Good.
people are buying online goods from Walmart are being sent to.
Yeah.
And they will charge you a sales tax for wherever you are.
Yeah.
Because there are different sales tax rates in different states.
Correct.
So here they'll say, well, this isn't a sales tax destination, this is Barbados.
Mm-hmm.
And the payment process will say, but VAT is eligible for that, so you will not have the sales tax on it, and you will pay VAT on the good if the good you are buying
On the good only.
is VATable.
Right.
And if it's clear that it's being consumed in Barbados, maybe because you've shipped it to Barbados.
So I sent it to a freight forwarder, so I sent it Miami, and then it comes here. So then obviously what you've said basically is that I pay the difference in VAT based on the freight and insurance component.
If there is if there's a shortage of VAT, because otherwise the VAT would have been paid
Well, there
on
will
the
be a
shipping,
shortage because I would have only
you would
paid VAT on the good.
You only pay the difference.
Right.
Now, you asked another very big question.
Yes. Which is my more important question.
Yeah, well, we know that there are lots of issues with the Barbados Revenue Authority. And whatever issues you think there are with the Barbados Revenue Authority, there are more with customs. And we have engaged a substantial amount of technical advice to help us deal with those issues, and we are addressing it. But I always want to be honest and clear with you. Will we get this exactly right on May 1st? We are trying our best to get it right. And what we have observed is that if we keep on delaying it, we will, you sometimes have to use the 80-20% rule in your businesses, right? We believe we're 80% there. We're trying to be 100% there. Because when government does something, it can't afford to be 80-20. It has to be 100%. We are trying very hard. We've put in special technical assistance to deal with this. We brought in special technical assistance to deal with this. We're trying. And I very much hope we get it right. And I feel free to tell us for any problems, because I think what I say to people is we will make mistakes. We will make many mistakes. Our commitment to you is to be fast at correcting our mistakes and not repeating our mistakes. So let us know, let the SBA be a means of communicating very quickly any problems you're having, and we promise and commit to trying to address that as quickly as we can. We hope not to make those mistakes, but in my experience of public policy, mistakes happen for things that you don't imagine, you didn't plan for. But we are trying to deal with it by bringing in technical assistance. We know we were in Washington, D.C., where we were having a presentation by some of the technical advice. And part of the problem is that we need people with different skills. We need more people in certain posts, and it's not an easy fix. None of the problems in BRA and customs are an easy fix. All I can tell you is we're committed to fixing it. Can we do another?
Thank you, Professor Avinash. There obviously needs to be greater communication and PR as it relates to how this tax is to be implemented. This is the first and most in-depth session I've had.
In depth
detailing,
or in depth?
In-depth session that
I'm
I've
getting
had.
nervous now.
The PTH. So I strongly believe that there needs to be greater communication and PR
Yes.
as it relates to how this is to work, because I am still not very clear. The question that I have, my brother has asked, and you will confirm, that this tax, even though the legislation has been passed in Parliament, has not yet been formally implemented.
Proclaimed.
Is my understanding correct?
Yeah.
If that is indeed true, should customs be applying the tax as we speak on items purchased online and landed at the port via a shipper?
I don't believe that it is yet, that we have started yet. I do not believe they're doing that yet.
Well, I'm putting this to you, that tax, because I'm speaking from first-hand
And of course, it wouldn't be
experience.
customs. So, sorry, explain to me what you think may be happening.
There should not be a tax applied to me having purchased an item online, let's say Amazon.com, when that item is landed here at the port via a local shipper, broker. There should not be a line item on the entry called value-added tax. Should there be?
If you can show that
Yeah.
you have paid the VAT online, which I think at the moment you will not be able to, then there would be no VAT to be paid at the port.
Subsequent to May 1st. Therefore, if that is being done currently as we speak, it is illegitimate, and therefore the consumer should claim.
No. The principle. Okay, come on,
Clarification.
guys, please. This is not. Please, this is not rocket science. You will not be charged twice when you can show you've paid it. If you can show you've paid it, you will not be charged twice. If you can't show you've paid it, you get charged.
Right, but the point that I'm making is this is to be implemented May 1st, 2019. Online. Okay, so usual value added will continue as normal. Okay.
And after May 1st, when you bring in a good, the customs person, and you might say to the customs person, I paid VAT online. And the customs person will say, invoice, show the invoice, you go straight through.
Okay.
If you cannot show that you paid VAT online, because remember, the payment processor may not have been convinced that the good was going to be consumed in Barbados. You may have shipped it to where you were staying, in your hotel, right?
Yeah.
So there are many things that you're going to buy online that are VATable in Barbados where you will not get the VAT being paid because the payment processor is unclear that it's being consumed in Barbados. So when you come into the port with that good, it's now VATable. If you can't show that you've paid VAT, then you will pay VAT. If you can show you've paid VAT, you will not pay VAT twice.
Okay.
Is that clear?
All right, thank you. Thank you.
Good morning. With respect to the freight forwarder that he mentioned, the freight forwarder, I guess you're going to rely on the old process. Even if the destination address is a U.S. address, you're waiting on the airport or the seaport to come in and catch it there. You're not actually going to charge VAT online if the destination address is a U.S. address.
If it's unclear that it's been consumed in Barbados, you're not charged a VAT.
Okay, that's it.
That is why, as I said earlier, I do not believe that all these examples you're giving me is where we're going to get a big increase in revenues. I think the big increase in revenues will probably come from the tourism sector, where a substantial amount of goods are purchased online, the payments do not come into Barbados, and we don't have good records of what was purchased and the levels of VAT that were paid. That, I suspect, is where the bigger increase will come. Not on individuals buying something online, getting it shipped directly to Barbados.
I have a question. I'm going to make it very specific. We purchase, we pay for a lot of software. Now, you've mentioned goods. I wanted to clarify whether that
So I mentioned...
You've mentioned goods. So far for the morning, you've only
Yes.
mentioned goods.
It's goods and services.
So it's goods and services. So when we pay online through our Visa credit card, how is the VAT going to be processed? I want to be clear. I'm paying my monthly subscription for my software. How is the VAT going to be charged, or is the VAT going to be charged? on that?
Okay, so firstly, remember, principle number 1. Is this VATable if you purchased it in Barbados? If it is VATable, then the fact that you purchased it abroad, it means it will still be VATable, right? The second thing would be, are you buying it on an e-commerce website? Are you going to an online e-commerce website? Then this tax, this form of collection will come into play. If instead you use your credit card and you phone them up, so you're not using an online website, you're not using Walmart.com, you've called up Walmart and you've purchased it with your credit card, it's not an online transaction. I'm just making sure I'm clarifying this for everyone else. And that transaction, which is not online, it just happens to be using your credit card with a telephone, that is not, this tax, this form of collection will not apply. Okay? So if you're doing it online, it's a VATable good that you're buying. When you go to, you've accepted what it is you're buying, you go to pay, it's at that point that the information goes to the payment processor. The payment processor is going to try and understand whether this is going to be consumed in Barbados. Let us say it's a kind of good that's being directed to your home and the payment processor believes it's being consumed in Barbados. Back will come your invoice, which will have the good, excluding VAT, and then the VAT, and a total. And that when you put in your credit card number, that VAT payment goes directly to the BRA, and the other payment goes directly to the vendor of the website.
But if it's already being paid to BRA, he says it goes directly to BRA. So are we including it on VAT returns in a specific line or something?
I think just because it's been received by BRA does not mean to say you should not record, especially if you wish to get, especially if you're looking at your net VAT position, etc. Okay, well, 1 second, we'll get to everyone as much as we can.
Hi, I just have a question from the
Please.
perspective of a tax professional. We know that we actually have clients who sell on Amazon. So would the tax be collected from Amazon as a whole or the individual vendors on their platform?
It is not a function of the vendor or the individual, it's a function of the payment processor. So let us say that you are using Amazon Marketplace. So you're on Amazon, but actually it's not an Amazon shop. It's a shop on Amazon. The payment processor, that's irrelevant to the payment processor. The payment processor only gets in play when you have said, yes, I want to buy this good. Then it goes to the payment processor. And the payment processor, which is not Amazon, makes a decision, is this being shipped to Barbados? Is it consumed in Barbados? If it's not, no VAT. If it is VAT eligible for this? It checks up what is eligible. If it is, back will come your invoice. So if it's an Amazon Marketplace, back will come the invoice. And you can use that invoice if anyone wants to try to charge you VAT again.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Oral Dowell. I have a curious question. You answered one of them, and that was the collection. You said it goes directly to VAT. If you have multiple currency purchases, euros, all that kind of stuff, when I'm claiming for my VAT inputs, what conversion do I use? Because the bank sometimes, depending on the cycle, and this 2% foreign fee, etc., then you're going to get, because some of the exchange rates at the base level of the transaction conversion is sometimes different depending on the credit card bank that you're using, then you're going to confuse the translation conversion of the foreign exchange, the foreign currency into the local dollars for claiming VAT. So I might buy something, the same product as somebody else in 2 different months and have a greater or lesser conversion impact that reduces my VAT payable based on my VAT inputs. How is that going to be dealt with on the individual, and how is that controlled, if relevant, by BRA checking, or whoever the authority is that checks that the conversion that I use to buy an airline ticket or something like that online, JetBlue, American Airlines, or whatever, how do they monitor that in the context of the conversion?
Well, I don't want to say something for which I'm not sure about, and I'm not sure about that. What I would say, though, is that one of the things that's going to happen with this online tax is we're going to get a tremendous amount of more data. So you will have data on the date that this transaction took place, and you would be able to show what the exchange rates were on that date. And so that may help you to manage any issues caused by the rates being different. But I don't want to offer you a clear measure of at what stage that's going to be done, because I'm not certain. But I would say that you would have evidence for the correct information.
My statement that will give me the information and the timing of when the VAT is due to be calculated and or paid. So you have a conundrum there, in my view.
I understand.
So you're really
I'm not going to be able to answer every single question.
So that's the only question for the morning you can't answer.
I'm sure there will be others. And let's not make that a competition, please.
Good morning, Merlene Harris Lynch.
Good morning.
I just wanted to find out in relation to services for exams that persons are paying online, and also professional fees and donations to charities. Are those VATable?
Well, you'll have to tell me. I mean, if it's VATable and you're doing it online on an online website, then VAT will be paid. But if it's not VATable, so some of the professional services would be VATable. And if that was being paid on an online website, then this collection method would apply. But if it's not a service that you pay VAT on in Barbados, then it would not be VATable.
Okay, generally exam fees are not VATable, but I know for subscriptions here with ICAB, we do have to pay that on our subscription
That's
fee.
right.
So I'm not sure if we would have to pay for our annual subscriptions, if you would have to pay VAT on that, because...
If you pay VAT on it locally, you would pay VAT online.
Okay, thank you.
This is not a new tax. It's merely a different way of collecting. Well, we have in a second, but let's have this question next.
Hi, good morning, Angela.
Good morning.
Angelique Custom Creations.
Please.
Angelique Custom Creations. As a manufacturer, I get like manufacturing concessions. I don't have to pay duty and VAT. So now that I have to pay the VAT online, I guess there's some kind of rebate we get.
Yes.
What's the process that we have to go through? And secondly, I think that this is going to be difficult on manufacturers because now we have to look for the money up front, so we have to budget differently. So is there anything that you guys plan to help us to do
So,
that?
you know, people often, thank you very much for your question. People often complain that we talked about this tax. We talked about doing it maybe in July, that we would do it in October. We delayed it to December, then we delayed it to January, and people complain. And it wasn't that we were sitting on our hands doing nothing. We were trying to deal with those kind of questions. That's a difficult question. I can deal online with goods that are not VATable, because I can send, every good has a code. And I could send the codes to the payment processor. I can make sure they're updated, because you can imagine not all of our codes are updated. We could do that. But the fact that you are yourself exempt becomes a problem. Because how do we send a code about who you are? And we spent days, if not weeks, trying to find a solution for your exact issue. We don't want a small manufacturer to have to pay VAT up front and then get it back. Now, the one thing that we concluded was that because this is online, and VAT's going to be paid straight away, that BRA has committed to looking at getting that rebate done extremely quickly. Now, you're laughing, you are laughing, you are laughing because you haven't had a VAT refund for about 2012. But you know, and we had the same reaction, I have to say, when this was discussed. And where we left it was, you know that actually all your VAT refunds will be paid this year. All of your up-to-date VAT refunds for this year will be paid. The government has the money to pay that VAT and it will be paid. And we are paying back the back years over the course of over some period. And when you get those VAT refunds, I want you to remember your laughter today. I want you to feel that laughter. And when you get your first VAT refund, I want you to think, maybe. And when the second comes and the third comes, maybe. But I have to say, we've tried very hard to find a solution to that problem. And if anyone else can come up with a solution to that problem, we are open to that. We've tried hard, but we can send codes for goods. We can't send codes for the individual. That's the challenge. Other questions? There's one here. There's a very patient lady up here too. So there are two questions here.
Hi, I'm Shireen. I'm manufacturing as well, and that was one of our queries. But the other thing is, wouldn't it have just been so much more simple to regularize customs at ports of entry?
No, because a tremendous amount of this tax is not something that comes through ports of entry. More than 3/4 of this tax will not be by things coming through ports of entry. Hotel rooms.
So hotel rooms that if we are going on a business trip, we're paying VAT for, or we're going on, you mean hotel rooms here?
Purchased on an online platform. Revenue sent outside of Barbados. We never know what was paid. Possibly being paid, possibly getting a recording that less was paid than was paid. So the notion that all we needed to do was improve. Now, settle down please. We do need to improve customs. And we have had teams of people trying to improve customs. That has to be done. Please.
Definitely.
But this tax is, if we were losing VAT merely because of customs, we would not have to do this. But as you know, you are in business, all of you. You know that more and more is being done online. I tell you that we're losing $50 million at the moment. If we do nothing, in 5 years we'll be losing $100 million. Transactions are moving online. We have to modernize the way we collect tax. So the main issue is that a tremendous amount of things that we are losing VAT on are being purchased abroad for things that never come in to the port. The port itself needs to be better. I mean, you know, we are looking at how do we fund new scanners. As you know, only 6% of goods are being scanned at the port. How can the port do a great job? How can customs be better? We are investing in that. We have just looked into how do we fund new scanners, new training. We will improve customs, we'll improve the port. But this is actually about a lot of stuff that never comes to the port. And more will be like that.
Just one other question. Who are we getting the invoice or the receipt that we paid VAT from? And how are we getting it?
The online website. When you push pay, bottom right-hand side, ready to pay, push pay, at that point, the information goes to the payment processor. The payment processor checks up, is this a VATable good in good and service in Barbados? Is this going to be consumed in Barbados? If it concludes yes, it sends you back the invoice. And when you type in your credit card number, it's to the invoice that's come from the payment processor. And you print that out, and you can show that at customs or anywhere else to show that your VAT has been paid. Now, there was a very patient question here. There's another one over there, and Alfredo over there.
Good afternoon.
You were looking at your watch. You have a long
To
question?
make sure it's afternoon. To make sure I've got the right greeting. So where we do business
Please, let's show respect, please.
So I'm from Carib Rehab, and obviously a lot of our goods are bought for hotels for the disabled, hospitals for the disabled, those sort of people. Right now, even though a majority of our goods are actually duty-free, we still, every single transaction, have to fill out a form, send it to the Ministry of Health, have it signed and stamped, and take it to the port. If an individual, say, buys a walker online and brings it in, they are charged VAT at point of entry. Some of our items are bought online, and as a result, we get the Ministry of Health to sign the letter. So I can't see how your payment processor would have that as a duty-free concession, because it doesn't seem to be duty-free across the board. Now, the other part of this is that because of the way our goods come in and our duty-free concessions for what we bring in, we have actually been owed VAT for pretty much since VAT existed. So I can imagine that the solution is going to be something along the line of, well, you'll be charged VAT and then you rebate. But as it stands, we already have hundreds of thousands of dollars owed to us.
I think I've got the question.
Right?
Now, if you are getting a VAT concession because of what you're buying, then, and there's some occasions where that is the case, then this is beauty for you, because the payment processor will know it's not VATable. You bring it in, and it will say very clearly VAT was not paid. It will say, it will say that the VAT was not paid, and that process is easy. If it is not what, but who and the what, then that's harder for the payment processor. So what will happen is it will come in. If it's a VATable good.
But here's the thing: is that if we for some reason don't have that piece of paper signed, even though it's actually in the VAT Act that these are not VATable goods.
Oh, well, you see, that's the big difference. That's the big difference. This is the revolution of going from analog to digital. We are in an analog world. And if you think you're in an analog world, Bra is probably in a sundial world. So we are moving to digital world. A digital world where there's a digital recording of what is not VATable. And so that should help, okay? Now, of course, if it comes in the port, you pay VAT then, without your letter, but the goal will be that if this is a good that the VAT Act says you do not pay VAT on, that information has been collected now by our agent NetSweeper and being put in the payment processors. So that is the future of how we do this. No more letters. And wouldn't that be easier for everybody?
Good morning, everybody. Quick question. The VAT is going to be charged in Barbados dollars or in foreign currency?
It's a good question. It'll be charged in whatever currency you're paying in. So if you are buying it in the US, it'll be charged in US dollars.
Correct.
If you're buying it in Canada, whatever.
Yeah, then
because you are paying it online abroad.
Another quick scenario. I own...
In the same way that if you use your... Hang on a second, ladies and gentlemen. ladies and gentlemen, if you use your credit card to buy a good abroad, not on a website, you are paying in US dollars. You're not paying in Barbados dollars. So there's no difference in that. The rate is the rate in Barbados.
Then another quick scenario. I own a hotel, a 10-room hotel. So
No, I didn't know that.
No, I don't, but it's a scenario. So 10 Brits book the 10 rooms of my hotel. So they paying VAT on that rooms. So I technically selling something for April 2020 that the VAT has been already paid. So I don't collect anymore the VAT. So I'm going to be always on a VAT credit with you. You are collecting VAT on my behalf, correct?
Yes.
So I'm going to be always on
Yes.
credit because I can offset my purchase.
Yes.
All right.
And again, that's another of the issues we spent about a week trying to work out,
Yeah.
especially for a small business. Let me say something else, though, and it actually refers to the last question. And I know people are finding a little bit of difficulty with this. You don't need to purchase it on a website, especially if you are buying a chunky piece of equipment. If you call them up and pay with your credit card on the phone, this system does not collect VAT. That's not to say that you shouldn't be paying VAT and that you should be paying it when it comes in. Okay? So some people seem to think that when they didn't pay VAT, it was somehow non-VATable. But anyway, so that is an issue that can deal with businesses for which there's a cash flow issue about the VAT refund. You would then buy the good on the phone with the credit card.
Hi, good morning. I have a suggestion.
Please.
Perhaps for the people that have duty-free concessions and VAT concessions, perhaps the same way that we are issued, or the person is issued with a VAT concession number, that number could be used as a certificate, as an input for when you make the purchase. I think I suggested that, but there was Great
a reason.
minds.
But there was a reason why the techies said that couldn't work.
There has to be a way. The same way that you
Couldn't
still
everyone
have
get a
to
code, I
register.
said?
Exactly.
Like a discount code.
Exactly. I mean, the same. And the other question I have is, if you have an e-commerce site that you buy goods from, let's say eBay or Amazon, your account is registered as a U.S. account, and your item then is being bought, registered to a U.S. account, being delivered to a U.S. account. Let's, for instance, say that a family member collected it and brought it into Barbados. How does that work?
Okay, so let's go through that process. You're buying it online. It's being sent to your, did you say your friend? Family member. I'd like to get more details in the story. Is it your sister, your brother? Okay, so let's say it's going to your sister, who lives in wherever, Connecticut. Even if you're using your Barbados credit card, which has your address, if it's being sent to her, it's not going to have VAT, because the payment, it's not going to have VAT when you buy it online, right? Why? Because the payment processor does not know it's going to be consumed in Barbados. Now your sister comes along through the port. We know it's going to be consumed in Barbados. VAT is eligible. And the customs official may say, did you pay VAT online? And if you haven't got something to show that you did, VAT is then eligible. And the reason why that system is not good enough for all VAT is a large amount of our goods that we import do not arrive at the port.
Maybe you can clarify something for me in relation to the FX fee. If we are paying...
Okay, please, everyone.
If we're paying VAT in the currency that the business is being transacted in, how does that impact on the FX fee being paid on the VAT? Because you're paying FX fee on the rest of the transaction. I'm thinking if the funds are coming here and it's for here, even though the vehicle being used is this online payment processor or whatever, we are now getting an additional charge of 2%. on the VAT?
Yes. There'll be a 2% charge on your VAT. Well, actually, if you hang on a second, if you buy foreign exchange with your credit card to pay for that overseas payment, then you will have to pay the FX charge. No, your payment process is abroad.
It's abroad. Okay, I thought you said with the BRA. But you're transacting something on behalf of the government in the country in which you live that you're trying to pay the taxes and be compliant with. So why should you then have to turn around and pay an extra 2% on that? I don't think that that's reasonable. I think that there should be a way to try to amend that, because then that's an additional charge that as a business you would not be factoring in.
2% of 17%, ladies and gentlemen, is a very small number.
It adds up. It adds up.
Okay. I hear you. I hear you. I hear you. Okay, it's 0.17%. Okay? 0.34%. Please. Please.
More question?
Please.
Good morning all. My name is Kishmore Lord, and I understand that the foreign vendor and the payment processor are two separate entities.
The foreign vendor and
the payment processor are two separate entities.
Yes.
Now, what if the foreign vendor does not approve of the payment processor? Is there an alternative option?
Our agent sits in all of the main payment processors. It is possible that they will find a payment processor that is not one of the main 12 and does not wish to negotiate with us. That likelihood is very low. Remember, today, people are paying sales taxes. It's happening already. America has more payment processors than almost in any other country, and that has not come up as an issue. And one of the things I was going to begin by saying is that every tax, there's almost no tax that is 100% foolproof. I'm not sure I should tell you this, but only 70% of income tax is correctly collected. We are losing about 30%. We're losing a big chunk of VAT, quite apart from online. We're losing a big chunk of corporation tax. All we can do is improve these things. Improve collection and make those gaps narrow, because if we can make the gaps narrower, then we can lower the tax rates. Because in fact, all the ones paying are paying for the ones not paying. So we're investing in trying to improve these collections. And that this tax is a way of, this form of collection is a way of improving and reducing the amount we're losing, and that should allow us to lower your tax rates. If we collect our 50 million, we can lower VAT by 1 percentage point. Well, we may decide to do something else with it, but we could lower VAT by 1%, which will more than compensate you for the FX tax on the VAT.
Sorry. All right, I guess last question really for me. So you're not a business now, so you're a private individual, so I get online tax for Amazon, all these different things. By having the 17.5 VAT tax on, do I lose on my personal allowance as an individual now? Because you get 20 US a year. So this 7.5 takes away and thereby reduces my net balance?
Well, you were eligible to pay that before, but it was maybe paid when you came in.
No, agreed. No, I'm saying from a credit card perspective, I get 20,000 US a year as a Barbadian citizen. By paying this 17.5 now, I basically reduce my purchasing power.
Yes. However, we have raised all of those allowances. Yes, we have. Look in the budget. I don't want to give you a number that's not correct. There's a table at the back. We've raised all of those allowances.
Okay, so that's it then? Okay, take it.
I can take a couple more.
Right, okay, so
Okay.
the two in the back who have not asked the question yet for the morning. There's one there, Maria, let's get that. And yeah, there's Lynn here. Who have not asked the question for sure for the morning. You want to make sure that you have an opportunity. So do.
Good morning. My name is Sarah Lane. I'm a consumer. I am not a business person. I've been dealing with this since September last year with the Ministry of Finance and Economic Affairs. I will say one thing as a comment. When I had my first conversation with Ian Carrington in October, November, everything that was being purchased online, regardless, that includes the rent that I pay for my daughter at university, the university fees, the goods and services I pay to send to her at her apartment in the United States, was going to be VATable. That, I have to thank you, because that is no longer the case.
I do actually think it was never the case, but there was maybe a very poor communication.
Yeah.
We can get better.
Right. I have seen the bill. If it hasn't changed, I'm assuming others have as well. Went around.
It's now an act.
Well, the act, it went around and around. But a couple of things. Just little bits of things. For example, Microsoft Office. I pay online. It's the only way for me to get Microsoft Office. I have to pay it online. One assumes I now have to pay 17.5% VAT on it. Even though I use it here, it's used in the US, it's used in Canada by members of my family. But because is that...
If it's VATable, if you would have paid it if you were to
well,
pay
it's not something I could purchase here anyway. It's not something I could...
So
it's not VATable, so
yeah.
we're good.
Yeah.
The question, just ask the question quickly first, please.
Sorry?
So if you could get to your question, because
okay.
yes.
So...
Thank you.
Right. What you've said is obviously purchases of online, these are things that are going to be shipped into Barbados. If I am using a personal credit card for a business transaction, and that that personal credit card is charged, and I'm charged the VAT, it's being shipped to a freight forwarder, it comes into Barbados, I just need to show as the business owner that I've paid it with my personal credit card, and we're good.
That's right. And your credit card has nothing to do with it.
Credit card has nothing to do with it.
You just show the invoice that it was paid.
Right. So, okay.
Great.
It gets better. It does get better. I understand there was the one concern was there was something in the act about being blacklisted, as far as the payment processor, but as you just said, it's...
Okay, so we do have in the act, and I'm very pleased to hear that every time we speak to you it gets better.
Yeah.
So I hope to speak to you more often. We do have in the act what happens if someone refuses to abide by the laws of Barbados, which is that if a good is destined for Barbados and will be consumed there, that VAT is payable. And we have, the only restriction we can have is to say, well, that activity cannot take place in Barbados. We do not believe that we will probably ever be engaging that sanction. But the payment processors want to know that this really is our law. That's the first question they ask us when we go to the payment processors. They say, so is this your law that VAT is payable? Show me the act. So they've had to get copies of the act. They couldn't start before getting copies of the act. And what they want to see as evidence that it is a law is that there's a sanction for breaching the law. So this makes it very clear that it's the law of the land. If you do not fulfill the law of the land, you cannot be transmitting services into Barbados. Do we think that will be a sanction we use? I don't think so. Nor has there been any evidence so far around the world of payment processors refusing to have the local taxes paid for where goods are consumed. Thank you very much indeed. Last question.
Thank you. Good morning, Vanita Ward. You said that the VAT will be charged in whatever currency, but when it comes to reporting, how is that being dealt with?
So you will have a record of the VAT you paid in that currency, and that currency will be merely the currency that the purchase is being made in. And you will have the date stamp, so you can look at the exchange rate, and that is the rate you could use in your records and your communication with the BRA. There is going to be the ability to collect a lot more information, and that should therefore help these processes, make them faster. That's our intention, that we move into the digital world from the analog world. Let me end by, do we have one more question? Good to see you, Anne.
No, it's mainstream and you need to use the mic.
Want to use this one?
I hope this is not an indication of the kind of question you have. Well, they told you that any question is a question. And I just want to know, if you buy something and you return it,
Is there a possibility for the reversal of the VAT? How is that? You have to come to BRA to get, or the payment processor when it's reversed will deal with that. How is that dealt with?
It's a very good question, and I don't want to give an answer because I'm not certain. I think it could be done directly from the payment processor, payment made. The challenge will be that how quickly is the reversal made? If the reversal is made in 24 hours, I suspect that will be the best route. If it's made after a week, payments may have already been made, sent, and that will be harder to reverse by the payment processor. And then you may well have to go to the BRA office. So an immediate reversal, 24 hours, likely. The longer it takes, the less likely. Let me end by thanking you all for your questions. I've tried my best to answer them. I didn't tell you that I would know the answers to everything. Hopefully, and I think through the process of the hour and a half, there has been a better communication, a better understanding of what we're trying to do. It's our job to explain it, and so keep those questions going. We will keep on trying to explain and give a better understanding. And as I said earlier, we will make mistakes. We will make mistakes. All we can promise is that we are faster and quicker and more responsible at solving those mistakes, coming up with solutions, and we wish to engage with all of you. There was a good suggestion there on how we might deal with people who are VAT exempt. You're all great thinkers, you deal with problems, you solve problems every day in your businesses. We are very open to ideas on how we can improve what we're doing. Thank you very much indeed.
All right, we thank Professor Avinash for his presentation, as I mentioned at the beginning, for fielding the questions this morning. I want to summarize, though, with this thought, Professor. I sat there and I listened to the contributions from many, and even prior, having read the legislation and looked at what happens on the ground, I am of the view, speaking from the Small Business Association's perspective, that government needs to revisit the FS tax. I am of the view that this is an ideal opportunity before May to consider removing the FS tax on transactions. I am of that view. I will make that view public. Because I think that it all adds up at the end of the day. We're talking about cash flow for small firms. So I'm really hopeful that you will take that back to the inner room, to the team, and ensure that some, reconsideration is done relative to the FS tax. But what we heard this morning, if I can summarize quickly in 4 quick points, let's remember that only those items that would incur VAT normally, based on the schedule, are applicable to this particular process, only those items. So let's remember, I purchase lots of books on Amazon, but books are not included. Good? Computer, software, etc., as far as I'm aware, that's not included. So only items that are VATable, that would otherwise be charged VAT, are included. That's one. And secondly, the item, good or service, must be consumed in Barbados. That's the second point. So that individual that purchases that blouse, that dress on Amazon, sends it to their relative in Toronto, wherever it is not consumed here. Now, yes, the relative may put it in the bag and bring it here, but the truth is, let's appreciate, the customs are not going to pick out that one dress and charge VAT on it. Not necessarily. So there's every possibility that that item will be escaped. Now, that is not to say I'm standing here and advocating that that's what you do. But that is what happens realistically and practically. The item must be consumed in Barbados. So there are many who have their addresses overseas and they send items there, and as long as the item is not consumed in Barbados, then it is not VATable. And thirdly, there's no double tax. There's no double tax. So that simply means that if you pay your VAT online, but you have your receipt is key, and you bring that receipt with you, which you should, and you're asked a question at the port of entry, you can demonstrate by showing your receipt that you already paid that VAT, then you cannot be charged VAT again. And if any customs official is so bold to do so, give us a call. We'll march up there. And then the fourth point I heard in the presentation is that the payment processor is key. And I understand that, yes, government would have engaged credible payment processors to ensure that they can capture this information, because it is at the point of that transaction that the VAT is actually captured, is actually charged. So the payment processor is key. This is, after all, an online transaction. So those are the salient points. I want to thank you for your interventions. I heard some very good suggestions as well, and I know that the team at the BRA, Ministry of Finance, etc., will continue to look at this to make sure that the process can be an efficient one. But as Professor rightly said, with all taxes we know, they're not perfectly applied and there will be issues. But I think, from what I've seen thus far, that the administration is one that will listen and will try to improve as they go on. So I want to thank you again for coming and sharing the better part of your morning with us. Just remember that we have our information session coming up in the month of May. And Barrows, I see you here. I think you're presenting in May on a very important point. We'll send that out to you via our usual communication route. So once again, Professor Abinas, thank you very much for sharing. Let's give him another round of applause. Let me thank my team this morning for coordinating this event. Andrea, Keisha, and Mario have done a fantastic job in ensuring that logistically we were all well organized. The team from Future Shock and Dylan Shaw as well for providing the PA system. Once again, thank you and good morning.